This conference will now be recorded.
That's rain.
Well, not, yeah,
So we'll call
I
to
think
order,
you were David.
we'll call to order the select board at 6 p.m. July 11th, and we have all three members present here in town hall. The first item of business is meeting with Lynn. Thank you for joining us, Lynn, for an update on the volunteer driver grant and
Great.
program.
So, thank you. I did submit a grant proposal. It was not for volunteer drivers, and we did get awarded a grant. So I'll
Good,
tell
thank
you
you.
what happened. After we met, the two things that stuck out for me was, one, that the person who rides the most is not a senior but is disabled. So I set up a meeting with Lisa Ann at Gould Farm to see if they could kick in any money or had ideas for grants, anything like that. And the other thing was, you guys had said, well, how much will it cost to do a volunteer driver? So I met with Lisa Ann, and basically the young man who rides is no longer connected to Gould Farm. He's living independent, he was, but he's now fully independent in the
Which is good.
community, which is great. And it meant that they had absolutely no interest in looking into supporting our transportation. So that closed up that. Then I
Is
did,
this still in Monterey?
he actually is in Monterey and he's close to the GB border.
Well, no, but it was like he might have moved completely.
Yeah,
so.
no, he didn't, and we can't not.
I get it.
And so then I did the math, and there was no point in applying for volunteer driver because it would cost about 1,000 annually in mileage, maybe 600 for taxis. But then we need more hours for either our COA outreach coordinator or somebody, and I put it conservatively at 2.5 hours a week to field calls, to match with drivers, to get taxis, to keep records, all of that. And that would be about 2,400 a year, so we're up to 4,000, and compared to 5,500, the headache is just, Melissa and I talked about it and made an executive decision that it made no sense to take on that headache to save $1,500. In the meantime, I heard about Tri-Town, I think they call it Tri-Town Transportation, Tri-Town, something.
Through Tri-Town Health, right?
No, it's, through Great Barrington, it's Tri-Town, it's, micro transit. It's Stockbridge, Egremont, and Great Barrington working together. They got a ton of federal and state money. And they are giving basically on-demand rides to anybody. It's not for seniors.
Stockbridge, Barrington
And, Egremont.
and Egremont, okay.
And the hours are extended, so it goes into the evenings during the week. They also are gonna provide rides on the weekends. They charge like $3 for round trips. I don't know
Whoa,
how
how?
it's sustainable. It's all through grants right now. I don't know how it will be sustainable, but it exists at this moment. So my idea was to reach out to Tate Coleman, who is the brainchild for this thing, and I said, you know what, we have a grant opportunity, maybe if we can get some money, you can give us more service, and we can see if more people use this, if they have additional hours, and he said yes. So I requested, what he said was enough, 2,500, which will give us weekend hours, evening hours, maybe part, joining in the shopping trip that they're doing to Great Barrington. And the 2,500 will go directly to Great Barrington Transportation, and we'll do in-kind record keeping and meetings and all of that. And so we got awarded it, the money should come sometime in the next 2 weeks, and we'll start planning it. And publicizing it, so it really costs us nothing to find out if we can, whether we continue it afterwards, after the year, that's, that's for down the road. But it seemed like volunteer driver just doesn't make sense, and this might be a way to get more for our money.
And if they might be funding it for a pilot program of some kind, but
Yeah.
Tate's piloting it, it might well end up working.
Yeah, he's pretty smart, from what I hear.
He figures out unusual things and finds ways to make them work that
Yeah.
everyone else would be like, that's not gonna fly, but then it does, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay.
So I'll learn more about it. I mean, the reason Stockbridge and Egremont were chosen is because they have vans. And we don't, but
What's everyone doing with the van?
I think
We
it's
bought one a
donated.
couple of
They
years
bought
ago.
it?
I think they got some grant money too, and they were gonna, when they wanted to pull out of the thing, they were gonna do it all on their own, and I think they had a hard time finding drivers.
Right,
And they ended up with a van sitting there.
right,
So,
okay.
I mean, this may go back
Less
to
than
our regular programming, so to speak, after the year, but we'll see. Costs us nothing to do this. And then the only other two things going forward is I wondered if it's worth, for the long term, having our grant person research whether there are disability transportation grants out there, so that down the road, if we're, falling back on ourselves for the 5,500, maybe a little more, we could get some disability funds, I don't know.
This is a weird question, but the microtransit, does it handle?
It does everything,
It does everything.
it's public transportation,
Wow, okay.
but ours doesn't.
Right.
Ours is for seniors, so if we were stuck back with ours.
No, got that, I just
Yeah.
was wondering, like, cause it's just a regular van might not be able to do
Yeah.
a wheelchair.
Yeah, no, but they had accessible van, so.
Right.
It's, everything is covered.
Wow, cool.
And the other thing is, just on behalf of the COA generally, I wanna look into, setting up a friends group, cause that's another way possibly to get support for transportation and possibly to get support for our Parkinson's group. And I just wondered, do you have guidance on where I start with something like that?
When you.
Creating a nonprofit, 501c3.
Ah, gotcha.
It's separate, and yeah, I think the library.
Like
has
Friends
one.
of the Library kind of thing?
Yeah.
Why don't you talk to the library board? 'Cause
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, okay. I will do that, because,
I'm sure,
Things that
there's
people
probably
might-
somebody who spearheaded it, but I don't know who that would have been.
people might be interested in supporting it, depends how complicated it is to say. Donations might be simple. So, it's usually something like, that's all, that's what I have, that's how it happened.
That's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I was pleased, I was tearing my hair out, and then I was very happy.
You still got your hair.
Right, it went through a whole transition.
I have no idea about what possibilities there are for that type of grant.
I have none either.
I get a lot of emails about grants, I don't recall any of those, but I can do a little more
Yeah,
searching. This is-
and then who does grants for the, oh, okay.
I have a couple people I can call. Oh, one of them is not in Massachusetts, but knows, because she is
They
disabled,
might
she
be
knows a lot of
federal.
people and they might be federal, or she might know people in the state of Massachusetts, because she's one of those people
Yeah.
that knows.
Okay, and that'd be helpful, because COA is not connected with
You are.
that. Huh?
You
With
are.
disability, with transportation, yes, but not with disability. Any other questions?
But
Does that make sense?
You're welcome.
Is it best email to reach you, if I find something, is it best to reach out to you via your COA email, or your, how are you like?
LBS,
And I'm happy to call you too, if that's better. LBS,
CPW
CPW,
at yahoo.com.
okay.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Okay.
Because there's
If you
probably
don't
gonna
hear
be-
from me, it probably means
Yeah.
they didn't have anything, like, yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you
Thank you,
guys.
Lynn.
Awesome.
Say hi to Tate if you talk to him.
I will, okay.
So the Southern Berkshire contract, other than changing, formatting stuff and just changing the names to be Monterey, I did have some questions and ideas.
I don't know, I was waiting to see if anybody else was gonna send me changes.
So I had a few thoughts too. Yep, so if you
So-
wanna start at the beginning and go through, yeah, it looks like you might have the same thing, yeah, I mean, we don't have specifications, right? There was at some point, there was like an attachment, but it was, I thought the only attachment I remember seeing was the like insanely large, this.
Yeah, and that wasn't even.
Which isn't
That's
applicable,
that was-
because it's regional agreement.
So that was,
But it's also a regional agreement, it's Southern Berkshire,
it's for all the towns, like if
Right.
we were to have an attachment, specifications for provision of ambulance service, it would be
for us.
It would be just for Monterey.
Yep.
And schedule of insurance requirements. In section 11 discusses insurance requirements, and it discusses again, schedule of insurance requirements.
Right.
Do you want printed copies?
No, I think we're.
I'm
I
fine
don't
without,
know.
Frank, do you want one?
No.
Oh, Frank, yeah.
All my notes are on here anyway.
So that is a question of what we, if we're gonna have that document, we need to have it. Schedule of insurance requirements probably is more necessary than specifications for provisions of ambulance service.
Cause it seems like a lot of the issues are covered in here, what would have been in there that was more specific?
I guess it could have been things about like response time or specific. I know services to be provided, contractor, section 6, contractor shall furnish ambulance service as defined in paragraph 1 and other documents.
Which is probably the schedule,
Yeah, so basically without it,
it's not clear
We're
what
not-
they're doing.
all that we have is contractor, section 7, contractor shall make available to the town ambulance of standard make and manufacture regularly maintained by a qualified mechanic. Modern, clean and neat appearance and fully equipped and maintained in accordance with standards recommended by Mass General Law. And then it
And
discusses
other
the
federal
radio.
laws.
My general thought on all this is we've had no concerns about the quality of the service that's been provided and the quality of the equipment that's been used, at least that I'm aware of.
Then
And so
we-
maybe we
help pay for them.
Yeah, right.
We did help pay for an ambulance. Maybe we can avoid going into too much detail on what the expectations are. Another way that we avoid going into too much detail about the specifications is if we make a pretty simple termination, we won't be we won't be tied into anything.
Like an out clause.
Yeah.
Right,
Well, there's a
There is an
termination
out clause,
clause.
yeah, but there is, yes.
But we could make it easier, we could get rid of the 14 days of written notice and the 7 days of
Although
notice
honestly,
in advance of the
I
termination.
mean, is that realistic though? I mean, honestly, what would have to happen for us to do it in more than that? Because we'd have to have a different coverage available.
Yeah, I mean, but realistically, or if we're just looking into the future, there are not multiple service providers that can really provide this service, so we're probably not going anywhere, for the time being.
And I guess what I'm saying is, what event would precipitate us withdrawing? Not only because there aren't comparable providers, but their breach of contract would have to be pretty egregious. Like, they would have, I'm trying to imagine the terrible thing that would have to happen, that we'd be like, we can't even, tomorrow, we're done.
Well, the other way, it would go both ways.
Yeah.
Because if you said we would wanna do it in 14 days, what happens, they say, okay, we're down a crew, we're cutting you guys out.
Right,
So, that would be,
Well, no, so that would be only for the town's termination, for their termination, we would require 45 days notice. Cause it's
yeah, but
clauses
if
A
you're
and B.
sitting on the other side of the table.
You'd be like,
and
why
it
do you
goes
get to get out?
45, I mean, it goes both ways when you get into some of these things.
I mean, I think it doesn't seem to be a big concern. I think it's good to have a contract with them because we legally need to and because we're clarifying the payment schedule. But if we've had no problems with the equipment, the service level, then I don't know that we should get into too much detail about
Termination.
It's
the expectations.
it's pretty vague though, to be honest, I read that as pretty vague, it's sort of like, your
Other than-
vehicles should be in pretty good shape, your people should be trained, and you have to cover us unless like the apocalypse hits,
Well,
essentially.
other than, what I'm getting at is, it refers to a specifications for provisions of ambulance service document, should we just get rid of that?
Oh,
Since we don't-
yes.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yes,
That's what
yes.
I'm getting at, so,
So,
if we-
and, yeah,
the
okay,
other thing,
there are a few other things.
the
like-
other document is the
Yeah.
schedule of insurance requirements.
And do we need a schedule?
Well,
Was that
sometimes in the private sector, we used to have certification of insurance.
included? Okay,
So they would have to, I've been on both sides where it required companies to do it, and I've had to do it when we were doing commercial printing, because I wanted to make sure the building was insured and stuff
Right, right,
like that. So we could, there's certification of an annual providing certification of insurance, which we give you, yes, they were covered and so forth.
So I guess what we'll do with that is just ask Donna if she has a sample schedule of insurance,
Yeah. Mhm.
requirements.
or it's either a schedule or a
So
certification.
it's certification of insurance.
I
mean,
maybe,
it used
yeah.
to be, I don't know.
I don't know, maybe there's a different, but I don't know what a schedule of insurance requirements is, maybe it's a schedule because it's
Well,
not just one type of insurance, it's like six.
Lots of times when we had vendors and you had to have certification of workman's comp insurance.
Right.
So
But it could be, but in this case, it could be both
The
the
building,
vehicles,
the
the
vehicle,
people, the
per
whatever, yeah.
incident,
Yeah.
per person, things like that.
So that could be why it's a thing.
So we'll add that in,
Alright, in two, the term, so I just wanna go in order, cause that makes life easy.
Yeah.
Do we want 2 additional one-year terms? Like, why, we have that in a lot of contracts, and it's unclear to me what it gives us.
the reason why I would do it with this contract, cause I thought the same thing, is the money thing. The money at this point with Southern Berkshire is really,
Okay, that,
really up in the air.
yeah, that's fair.
Nothing else about the situation is really up in the air, other than that the money has changed so many times in the past 5 years. From them not asking for any money to $5,000 to.
But they sent us the financials,
Mhm.
and I think I printed it out at home. I mean, it's not like they're swimming in cash.
No, they're not.
They're not, but they're
It's-
they're a 501c.
It's clear why they're altering their.
Well, you can understand the train of thought, but, I mean, they really do that financials, and I don't remember the numbers, but this is labor, this is vehicles, they had virtually no debt, which was good. So.
Well, I think maybe I didn't clarify exactly what I'm talking about. This year, the agreement is going to be for $51,670. What's it gonna be for next year? There's no indication that it's gonna be for at all the same
Consistent,
amount.
right.
They could be asking for way more, less. We've argued, and I think we're gonna continue to push for it, a better assessment for the town, because right now they're doing it exclusively on the town's valuation.
Right, I don't know.
Which is really interesting, because I was talking to someone about this a couple weeks ago, and they said, I read a letter from Southern Berkshire where they were going based on call volume to each town. And I said, no, they didn't, it was based on assessment methodology. And they pulled it up, when they asked for the ARPA money, they went based on call volume.
When asked who from?
All the
ARPA.
towns, including Monterey,
Including Monterey.
which we gave to them.
Hello, based
So-
on call volume?
Yes,
Hmm.
this was back like January 2022 or somewhere about there. But I had completely forgotten about that.
Me too.
But they had done an assessment based on, I think at that point it was exclusively call volume. I don't know if you can find that, Melissa. They asked for it exclusively based on call volume, the ARPA one.
So they cherry pick what they want.
Yeah,
to
so-
do.
Long
It
story,
was to make Great Barrington happy, there's no,
So-
this was a political decision, and they needed to get the amount down for Barrington. I understand why they did it, that doesn't mean I have to agree with it.
Right,
so long story short,
or at least.
I think the money's up in the air to the extent that we've only been assessed like this one time,
Mhm.
and we really push against this just because we think it's not fair to the town.
Mhm.
Even though I don't think $51,000 is incredibly expensive compared to going off on our own or going off with another town or two, it's just not really fair
Based on,
how it's being split up.
Right, I understand.
So-
The formula was not there. I mean, the dollar amounts you could debate, but the formula.
So Melissa had I thought a really good suggestion, which is that we see if we can get a seat on the board. Which, I mean, I'm certainly willing to serve if we can get a seat. I think it would be a smart move, right, for a lot of reasons. I don't have any expertise I can offer from a EMS standpoint, so I don't know if you'd be a better choice, Justin, but I don't know if that's necessary for this.
I think you're there to monitor the financial. you know.
I mean, it's voting rights, if you're like a school committee member, you know.
Yeah, it's a good suggestion, trying to get someone on there.
And I don't know if we can put that in here. or
Oh, we
do-
should, yeah, if we want it, it should definitely be in here.
Yeah.
Uh,
I found a
don't
letter that
ask,
says
they
that it was, based on population.
or population. Oh, my mistake.
Still, population is not the
Rather
same.
than-
Yeah, but that's fair. I'm
Yeah.
willing to do on the basis of population.
But anyways, it goes against.
Yeah.
The school assessment methodology is a complex formula with so many things involved, right?
Yeah,
And maybe this is why, because you can't really just look at one thing. Although it would make some sense. So why don't we leave it as a 1-year contract? If anything, I don't know if we should have the 2 additional 1-year terms because the assessment is so up in the air.
I mean, if we just, that's what I was basically saying, what does this give us?
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna, obviously, the contract would have to be renewed each year. What's the difference between saying we have the option for 2 additional years and just, we should negotiate the contract each year? Like, in the end, we're gonna have to negotiate the amount
or
every year
do
anyway.
we tell them we want a 2-year contract at the same, where it's the same year every year?
No, I wouldn't, because I do think from talking to at least one member of the Southern Berkshire Board, this year they asked for the money and came up with this assessment methodology and it didn't really make sense. And I think that they are hopefully going to be open to reconsidering that.
Okay,
So it might lock us out of,
An improvement.
yeah, we might lock us out, say.
I think we should just ask
We
for
don't
1
know,
year,
we don't know.
and if we're happier with another assessment method, then we can make a 3-year contract or something, even if it has to have a bump in it, you know?
so terms of agreement, we'll delete the second sentence
Yeah, I think
about extending it.
And we have to change the dates, obviously.
Yes, I'll do that.
And then under payment schedule, I
Yeah.
think quarterly instead of every monthly, wasn't that?
It's quarterly.
That's what they sent, but I would prefer
You
monthly.
would prefer monthly?
I would,
Okay.
I mean, then it's not such a hefty payment, and I'm just gonna have to check with the accountant, but we have to pay after the services have been rendered, not
Okay.
before, you know, it's like with the garbage, we pay after they've,
Right,
so I would think they would want that on a monthly rather than.
waiting a quarter, okay, gotcha, alright.
Yeah, so let's keep it monthly for services rendered on a monthly basis. So that should be,
Okay.
like the July bill we should get at the very
August.
beginning of August.
Okay.
5 contract documents.
Obviously, we don't have an RFP, nor
Yeah.
I believe that we don't have to have one.
So this
So-
agreement shall include all the amendments here too, and all documents listed as contract documents in the proposal.
But it wouldn't have a proposal form, cause that's from the RFP.
Yeah.
So I don't even think we need that.
But should we just keep in the event of a conflict between any of the contract documents, the document most favorable to the town and its sole determination?
Shall prevail, sure, because if there's something in the schedule of insurance, the most favorable to the town, you gotta give them something to complain about in full.
Services to be provided. It's just changing it to the Monterey Fire and Police.
Right, I was not even bothering to mention
Yeah.
things with Topsfield in there.
7 types of vehicles to be provided, any comments?
No,
No,
8 trained crews.
pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
I'm good all the way down to paragraph 9.
Yes, 9 I have comments too.
So, first of all, I should say those events specified, it's on the second page of it. In the event that the ambulance service cannot be provided
Yeah,
to the town by contractor due to emergency included, but not limited to those events, plural, not event. And then the last sentence.
yeah.
Any charge incurred by the town for ambulance service provided by any other ambulance service shall be paid promptly by contractor, really?
So I Actually, maybe Melissa has some insight.
And you may get the same, okay.
It's my understanding when Sandusville runs their own ambulance, and when Southern Berkshire comes to Sandusville and intercepts, or because Sandusville's somewhere else, they pay Southern Berkshire, like a set amount.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
But we don't pay Sandusville, New Marlboro, Otis.
Well, maybe we're out there, there's fires.
Well, so anyways, it's my understanding that in some cases, towns do pay other ambulances that come. And this kind of goes back to when we were initially looking at ambulance prices. Remember how there were prices set in Mass General law?
Yeah.
$300 per call.
Right, it's a
I think
lot
they-
less than you're
I
paying.
think they use those rates even. So if Southern Berkshire goes to Sandusville, it's my understanding Sandusville pays
Those
Southern
rates.
Berkshire per call. So I think that's what this is getting at.
Huh.
So maybe we have to do, maybe we can just remove it, and maybe we have to do a little bit more digging to figure out why do we not pay Otis, Sandusville, New Marlboro if they come to Monterey.
But
We don't have an ambulance, so we can't base
we
it on our
can't do
policy.
that, but
And are
is
they
it,
volunteer? Is that-
That's what I was wondering.
that's what I
But
was.
why does, yeah, I mean, I don't know, I think even, I wanna say Sandusville might pay New Marlboro when New Marlboro comes. We just have to figure that out. I've always been a little bit confused by it ever since this ambulance stuff has come up.
Be careful what you ask.
Yeah,
Maybe they don't have a
Maybe.
mutual aid agreement? with
What's
them?
that?
Maybe they don't have a mutual aid agreement with them?
I don't know, I think I thought everyone was signed on to the fire mutual aid, where no one pays each other for going to fire calls. But I think there is this thing with ambulances, and maybe it's gonna take a little bit of digging to figure out, but we can probably just remove it, because to our understanding, we don't pay. The point being, Southern Berkshire would be more incentivized to respond to as many Monterey calls as possible if they had to pay out of their own pocket when New Marlboro came.
Oh, that's true.
Yes, I think that's why this is in here. But we can probably take it out.
In paragraph 10, it should read in that last sentence, described in paragraph, it says described in paragraph 8, it's actually paragraph 9.
Yes, I got that.
Okay, that might be my last major one. No.
Well, this schedule of insurance requirements comes up in 11, so
Yeah, I
we'll
wasn't.
get a schedule of insurance
Yep,
requirements or insurance certification.
My next one's 19.
I did, if we'll go in order, in 16,
Okay,
in the last sentence, I did change, and the town shall thereafter have this is after the contractor has failed to provide service for 14 days or more.
Okay.
Like if there's, for whatever reason, I wrote, and the town shall thereafter have the right to terminate this agreement by giving written notice to the contractor of such termination, and specifying the effective date thereof. I just deleted at least 7 days before the effective.
well, if they had already not been providing
For
service for
14
14 days,
I don't
that kind
We
of
should
seems
make
fair.
it 7. And then in termination, for cause, I did change it to, delete which failure or violation shall continue for 14 days after written notice of said failure or violation is received by contractor, and did delete at least 7 days before the effective date of such termination.
So basically that whole sentence is calculated?
It would read, subject to the provisions of the section entitled force majeure, if contractor shall fail to fulfill in a timely and satisfactory manner its obligations under this agreement, or if contractor shall violate any of the covenants, conditions, or stipulations of this agreement, then the town shall thereupon have the right to terminate this agreement by giving written notice to contractor of such termination and specifying the effective date thereof.
And then the last clause is also passed.
Yeah, that's just the whole thing.
That works. I like
And
it.
if they don't
No, I like it.
fulfill the contract,
Yeah.
then we should be able to get out.
Yep.
19 is collusion, you had comments?
Yes, because it's all about the proposed contract price arrived at independently, this is all about RFP.
Yeah, I think we
So
can
none of
delete
it's
the whole
appropriate,
thing.
yeah, the whole thing.
Formatting changes, and then That's all I had.
That's all I have. Did you have anyone?
No.
So we'll send it off to Donna, I guess.
And
We'll-
obviously
we'll try to get the
dates,
insurance.
right, yeah.
I think I have the dates and such. We'll send it off to Donna
How would we
and ask
ask for,
for insurance certificate.
and also ask for some language asking for us to have a seat on the board?
Yes. Yes.
Would that be a her thing, or do we need to?
No,
know
I think
that?
that's
her
exactly
thing.
where we should go, because I don't know exactly where if you should make another section or if it should be somewhere in an existing section, but I think that's very fair.
Did you have the response time in there? Or did I miss that?
My sense is to not make a response time requirement, because the documents you sent us, I mean, it's been pretty steady over 5 years, and I don't think it's
I
bad.
don't wanna change this,
I think it's too,
too restrictive.
well, it's, okay, so some calls are gonna be, they're out somewhere else, and so you're gonna have to make an exception for sometimes they're just not gonna respond. And it's gonna be New Marlboro, San Antonio, or Otis. And then some calls are gonna be down by the east end of Lake Garfield, or up there on the end of Bear Mountain Road, and some calls are gonna be on 23 by the Hayloft Gallery. So we could do something, if we had a problem, I mean, that's why it's 1 year, and we'll, yeah, I mean,
It's been pretty consistent,
Yeah,
so
that's
asking
consistent.
for a change doesn't seem like, is there a reason we need it?
if we were having
There's
problems.
never a reason until you need the reason. Until you
That's-
have a reason, you know?
Oh,
I
I
think
mean,
it's,
it might be worth putting in that their consistent time is the, you know, appropriate.
The question is, what is the consistent,
Well,
about half
it's
of
about
them,
20, I think
yeah.
it's like average.
21.
about half of them
21
are
minutes or
in
something.
the 20 to 30 minutes, and then the other half's either shorter or longer.
Well, it says, well, it depends what's in 22, the most was 12 to 15 minutes, 16.
Right.
But then 18 and 20 minutes was 15. So,
I think we could, I think,
I guess what you could do is to have them consistently provide information on what the calls are.
well, did we ask in here for
No, there's nothing.
a monthly report or a
monthly
quarterly report?
Then you,
These are just call response times, they're not, what the calls were, or severity, yeah.
But I do know they can pull that out of that system. It's the same one the fire company uses.
So we want quarterly reports or something.
That do, what would that say, like quarterly?
Or
of
get
course,
says
you would
that
say what you have.
This is just response time, but would we also want the severity of that, we don't want the person, but we'd like to know,
Types of calls.
yeah, types of calls.
Well, yeah.
You know, weak and dizzy, dead person, like, I don't know, like.
Poor dog.
Just, so crass, I'm sorry.
With response times and type of call.
And I think quarterly is enough, we don't really.
Yeah. So, and maybe, if other towns know that we're getting a seat on the board, they'll ask for the same, maybe that's the right thing.
Roughly, I'd say it's pretty consistent, about half of the call volume is between 10 and 17 minutes, something like that.
Which is probably just about how long it takes to get to most places in Monterey from Fairview
Exactly.
in an ambulance.
I mean, I'd say in 22, there were more highway calls than there have been, but there were also more calls.
Alright, so I will send that to Donna with asking for the additional things that we talked about, if she can incorporate them in. And hopefully after next week's meeting, or if I hear back from her, would you guys be comfortable with presenting this to Southern Berkshire?
Yeah.
With those additions?
Oh, yeah, I'd be very comfortable with it. I think it's thorough. I don't think there's, no, it's.
And if we, I'm like, and if Donna thinks we can leave off the schedule of insurance and just have certification of insurance, I'm okay with that too, like, you know.
Some kind of an insurance.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's that.
Yay.
The Beacon Solar Energy Consulting contracts, there's the two, right?
So it sounds as though one is good to go.
Yes,
I feel like I'm comfortable with the Meta
Meta,
grant, but
we need
it remains unclear as to whether
Okay.
there's any buy-in from the fire department, so.
There's a couple issues. I was late. I asked Sean for a meeting, and I didn't, there's a couple, I asked him for a meeting. I wrote the email today. The one person I knew responded to me, and he was on vacation last week because Sean's concerned about solar panel fires. I did do research and found an NREL report that basically says a Tesla system was in a world of their own with fires. In other conventional, there's solar panel failure is in 0.05% of panels, and that's failure. That doesn't mean they catch fire. So there is no statistic, according to them, or they lead you to believe that by reading the report in 2017, that there is no panels catching on fire. Now, what they do tell you is that 2.9% of Tesla solar systems on Walmart roofs are going up in flames.
2.9%.
7 out of 240. And it's clear there's a Tesla, and it had to do with some kind of connector, and Tesla fixed it. But I can only share the data with them, and then I was waiting to talk to the guy that I know in the color.
Is there any reason it did not sign the Meta one?
No, I think that we
I
should.
should sign the metal one, but I wouldn't sign that until we have.
Yeah,
So, yeah, but what we need to do with the ARPA funds is we need to actually tell Beth or Peter and Beth that we actually wanna put that on pause until we know.
You want me to reach out
Company's
to
on
you?
board? Yeah,
I don't have a problem.
but I think Peter knows that,
Yeah,
but we need to
Well,
clarify this.
I'll catch him up with the information I just shared.
Yeah.
So he has it, so if anybody else brings it up. And then, I'll get Sean to sit down. I have said invite whoever you wanna talk about.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I mean, it's out of our control to some degree,
Well, it
and
is,
so
it's not our building.
if, the discussion can be had and then we can go from there.
Mhm.
But for now, let's sign the medal. So I would move that we approve the Meta contract with Beacon for the Meta grant.
Do we have to reach out to Beth to explain why the other contract isn't present? Should we do that, or should we
I think you
just
should.
let, I mean,
I
it seems
think-
to me we should just do it directly and not ask it to go through Peter.
So we should,
Yeah, but he has
because,
a good working relationship with her.
Okay.
That's my feeling.
so technically, I mean, probably what we really should be doing is we have an existing contract with Beacon
Mhm.
for $15,000 that we have in ARPA funds to look at for buildings.
Right,
And so technically, we should probably be making a very formal
change to the contract,
change to the contract.
which I think is what these are. Isn't
But we're
that,
not changing, this Meta one is just a new contract, right? The other contract, she was proposing an amendment to, where she was only looking at the fire company buildings.
right,
But until we change that amendment, it hasn't been amended at all in any way.
I see,
And it has
okay.
been terminated. So technically, we should really probably be changing that, but since the timeline on the fire company turnaround may be quick,
Maybe,
and we don't know which way it's gonna go, seems kind of premature to amend that contract.
Yeah, I wouldn't spend any energy on it until we have an answer.
But technically, we have an outstanding contract, technically,
Yes, we do.
right, where it says, but if we communicate to her directly and say, to pause that, then we probably have pretty good standing, and she seems like, I don't think she's gonna go ahead and do $13,000 worth of work on it,
Yeah, right.
when we don't want that, so.
but I think that I think we do have to put a cover letter with the Meta grant sign thing saying, just to be clear, we're waiting to hear back from the fire company regarding their willingness to participate in the firehouse project, but we would like to go forward with this in the meantime. And we'll revise the contract regarding the ARPA funds in due course.
Yeah.
Something of the kind. Does that make sense?
Exactly.
Like, I think it should come for us, because
Yeah.
we're the ones signing the contract.
Yeah, or not, so,
Yeah.
yes, I think that's a good thing.
I'm not trying to upstage Peter, I just, if my name's on that
Yeah.
contract, I'd
Okay.
rather be clear.
So I would move to approve the Meta contract.
There's 2 spots.
Would be,
One
yeah.
drawer and a 3.
All right, I second the motion.
Yep,
Any other discussion on that, we'll vote?
yes,
Yes, so it's unanimous approval of the Meta grant contract, but we will not. We'll hold off on
It's
our.
just, I think it's just one,
It
this
only-
one's for Beth.
Right, it only has 2 for the select board, so if you want a drawer and a
There's
third
two
for
for,
Frank.
this looks like it's print name.
Right.
Oh, I
that's
see,
right,
that's
right,
just,
so that
I
would just,
gotcha.
and then be you, and then we'd have to draw on one for Frank.
Yeah, yeah, whatever. Just, he can sign it too, I'm not trying to exclude anybody. It's fine. Oh, Justin. Don't mind me. I don't know, this weather's getting me.
So the next item is the IT proposals. Which we have 3 of.
Who's the third one?
Well, it's did Mac.
Oh, the Mad Mac, right, yeah.
Yesterday, Melissa, when we talked, on that sheet, the Wiley, is that a monthly fee?
Whaley is, cause
Yeah.
that was confusing.
Well, it was, I didn't know, so what they're saying, that's a monthly fee, but you gotta do it for 3 years, 36 months.
So this is what I understood from this, and I wanted to check it. So there's a plan for the acquisition and installation of a physical server, right? So they're talking about the local backup software, hardware, or this is where, isn't it?
So I don't think they were saying that they wanted a physical server here, it was John Shannon.
Shannon is the one that proposed.
Oh, it's
that-
Shannon is right, I'm sorry.
Proposed the server.
But so I just wanna make sure that I understand his. It's
John Shannon?
Shannon. So the server itself is like $7,500, I'm rounding, to maybe quicker. It plus $2,500 for installation, so the server would be $10,500. But then we need another $3,000 worth of licensing software for it. Plus Office, do we not already have Office?
We don't.
Okay,
But.
for another $7,000. But these are all options, it's not.
Yeah, the thing with Office, I think people, employees or departments do have Office, right? They don't have the monthly. Okay,
Well,
So-
we need to bring that current.
No, we do.
Right, we need to have our
yeah,
Well,
maybe
but
we
not
need
only
to,
it's a violation of law.
I think, my sense is that the John Shannon proposal makes the most sense. But that
But,
maybe we need to work with him as to what options we want and when.
All right. Explain to me why you think it makes the most sense. Okay, but, all right,
Yeah.
this, come on, all right, so, we know under his, we don't need that server, is that correct, Melissa, if we put everything on the cloud?
Right.
Right, so, that's, that's,
well, unless you get, depends on what your answer is to the tax collector and the assessors. If Mari's right now being forced to go to the cloud because we're not getting another server, but I know she would prefer that we get another server.
yeah, but,
The other thing we can do is we can run our old server for some amount of time, like if the assessors don't want their,
Is it
There-
That's 2008.
There- if they don't, if they're doing the revow and they don't want to lose their data for some amount of time while it's being uploaded to the cloud, then it doesn't all have to happen at once, right? We could go.
Well, you're gonna
work
have
with
a,
them.
you're gonna have a
transition.
transition, the question to them, what's the transition look like? I think the other question is, you said the tax collector and the tax assessor, they could be, their actual operating software for what they use would be on the cloud.
right, that's gonna be completely separate from
Okay, I
this.
know, it is, it's a separate, that's why I diagram, but, you know, my experience is in today's world, we're successful. You don't have to worry about upgrade, you don't have to worry about network security.
What, just exclusively cloud?
Yeah, because if, let's take Marty's software for tax collecting. It's on there, it's done by the vendor that manages it. And, you know, you don't have to worry, the upgrades are transparent, the security and things like that. The downside is, if you lose the internet here, she's stuck in the, you know, but we have a very high upgrade.
Well, the assessor's office actually said, or Scott, the chair of the board of assessors, said that they actually really do wanna move to the cloud, they don't wanna be on the physical server. They
So they
do
wanna
wanna, they
transition.
do wanna be on the physical server, or have that continue on for some months.
Right,
Now,
you do a
transition.
transition, you do a
And are you saying
transition.
that the
Right,
bridge
and that
that we
was like-
currently have
But
is
you
not
got, the
able to
question I
function
have
now?
about the servers here.
Yeah.
They could be so old
I
that
mean, right
you
now it's.
can't make them security compliant.
Right, cause 2008. is
Yeah, no,
not
these
that
ones-
but-
Okay.
Yeah, you
I
see,
see
there's,
what you're
there's
saying.
security,
Yeah.
that, particularly with the tax assessor,
Yeah.
I don't know if she's taking credit cards or whatever, but you have to, you know, I would ask the guy, you know, you talked about Shannon, tell me about these servers out here, are they security compliant, are they up to date security?
I'm sure they're, right?
I know, but then you have to have, you gotta get it up.
Yeah. So
Particularly
my
now that-
sense is looking at the costs and how it's presented, that John Shannon makes the most sense. I think he'd be
Well,
good to work with on the transition and more affordable
I think,
than $2,390 a month. And
So,
well,
so far
that
I've
seems
talked
high
to,
for 15 users a month,
what does, the,
$2,300 a month.
28. Right, plus the fire chief, plus another
2390 a month for Wally.
And then,
wait, Shannon isn't 2,800?
no, Shannon, but that's for a year.
A year, right,
Yeah.
2,800 a year is pretty good.
yeah,
Also,
but
I
I
did,
would-
by the way, talk to both Mari, who uses Shannon in New Marlboro, and to Brian, Shannon does the police department. And both of them said that they've been very
oh, that's
pleased.
good
Would
to
you
know.
concur with that assessment from what Mari said? Yeah, now, Melissa, like the other guy, the other people.
Well, I would say that's.
They certainly talk a good,
Sophia,
right,
she was
she
not
was
as
the one who's
crazy.
not crazy, yeah.
but Jenny- I just think you should meet them both and ask
Well,
them
let's meet
questions.
I have no problem
Next
going.
week.
I know they're
I
much
don't
more
think so.
expensive, but I thought they were much
Well,
more professional.
You know, I guess the other question is, when you see Wally, you see he has 100 ex-employees. How many people does this guy have too? You know,
So-
And his son.
yeah, you know,
The
you have to register, you gotta think about, one gets hit by a car, you know.
Yeah.
I mean.
Fair, on the other hand, 10 grand just to onboard.
I'm saying, you know,
I
it's
know.
on the strong side, the weak side, you know,
Right.
you know, you sit there and make a list and we'll evaluate which one's better, but you can't ignore.
So
it.
let's meet with them next week,
Okay.
like 6 and 6:15, hopefully they're both, or
Yeah.
6 and 6:20, please. Hopefully they're both available.
This is,
And then if they're not, we'll have to have that.
this is gonna sound like a weird thing, but, and maybe it's because this is not my, like, strength, but is it just me, or does this seem like they're trying to wow you with a bunch of lingo?
Which one on what?
Whaley,
Well, no, I mean, some of that,
managed endpoint, including threat protection and patching, managed server, including threat protection, network as a service, Meraki, MR44, access points. Like, it sounds really high tech and professional, but I sort of feel like I'm reading a phaser manual. Like, is it, I don't know if it's real or if it's just them making it sound very.
So when I talked to Mary, she's very happy with them, she gets monthly reports from them.
That's Egremont, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
She gets monthly reports from them on all of the users in here, whether they are doing the updates that need to be done, you know, so they're monitoring our systems and each user on the system.
And how well they're like keeping up to date.
Amongst other
Yeah, yeah.
things. I just felt that they were more thorough in their questions and in looking at our current systems while they were here. Like you guys,
They actually looked at this.
yeah, they actually went in the server, they actually went around and looked at all of our equipment. We're very thorough.
Alright, so we will meet with them and interview them, so to speak. If we don't have anything at the beginning of next week's meeting, then we'll do that at the beginning of next week's meeting.
I'd like to get them to explain what the onboarding fee is. But that I didn't understand.
So, we'll come back to that next week. The next item is the draft capital planning policy.
But the,
I realized, Frank, once you sent out the document after last week's meeting, that essentially what happened last year was there was a separate select board version that got developed.
right,
And I just sent you both, just before the meeting, my comments.
Did you have any idea, this one that Frank sent around, is it?
that was the only one I had on my
Right,
hard
so
drive.
now I'm gonna have three, but like, which one's the one you work
So,
Well,
I mean, if you wanna see Frank's with my comments, go to my email.
from? Which of the two, or, yeah, there's two attachments in here.
They start off looking very similar wording wise,
One's
so one's
32,
called
one's
FC
18.
version, one's called SB version. So the FC version is the version that Frank sent.
Draft policy, July FC version
Yeah,
is
so-
the one Frank sent.
So
Sorry.
I have some,
And the other one is the one you had.
yes, from last year.
Okay.
And if more or less, Frank, since you started being the point person on this, if you're willing to get
Yeah, let me, what I'd like,
finance committee.
Where do you see finance committee, is that your name?
Yeah, you have to like preview it to see it. So wait, is
I
the,
just
the one that
should've
says
written-
FC
Okay,
version,
I got
is
it.
that, this also, it's his version but with your comment?
Yeah,
Okay.
so I have some problems with it, with how it's written, or this version of it. That if you look at the SB version, we got rid of those problems mostly because we just got rid of a lot of
Yeah, it
stuff.
should
We
just
made
be
it a lot
capital plan, not capital
shorter
planning
and more
policy, I think I saw
consistent.
that on the previous version.
But maybe, Frank, if you just wanna if you wanna be responsible for this, and I'll go over quickly what I have comments on, and also I sent it to you.
yeah, okay.
And then you can also, if you don't mind, look at the select board version from last year and see what we did to trim it down.
Okay.
Not that we need to go with that, but
Okay.
what are the differences? Cause we did put time and energy into it. Well, I kinda know what happened, but last year we had all put a lot of time and energy into this, and that effort fell apart, so then we just gave up on it, but we're making another go at it. So, it speaks of a couple times the capital planning policy, which I think, this is the capital planning policy, so I think usually when it does that, it actually just wants to say capital plan.
Plan, yeah, I believe that's true, except in the first, the development of the town's capital planning policy, that's fair, but then division of responsibility, that should be capital plan, and in policy, it should be submitting capital plan,
So wherever it says CPP,
except the first time. Except in that first paragraph where it should be policy.
yeah, the only problem that I have with that is the line above is capital planning policy and procedures, so it should probably
Yeah.
it's confusing
Yeah,
to be inconsistent.
Yep.
So either make it the capital planning policy or make it the or write
You're
capital
right, it
plan.
should be capital plan everywhere, I think. This is our policy, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
this is
okay.
the policy.
I see your point, it should be
So
capital
it should
plan
be
everywhere. right?
everywhere it's CPP, it should be just capital plan. Then that actually takes care of a lot of problems I have. There's two worksheets, or forms mentioned here, the capital improvement worksheet and the capital projects rating sheet. in the select board version from last year, at least the version that I found and I sent along, those forms were completely removed for a couple reasons, I think, from my memory, or why I wanted to remove them. One is we come up with forms and sometimes they don't get used, and that's not really helpful. I'm not opposed to having a worksheet, but I think if we're gonna have one, there should only really be one. Like if we're gonna, I understand it's gonna be different if it's buying a new vehicle versus building a new building versus buying a new server on the computer server. But somehow I feel like that form should accommodate, okay, if you're buying a vehicle, what's the mileage? Obviously, we don't not wanna know the mileage on a building or something. But if we're gonna have a form, and also the other thing is I couldn't find either of those two forms. So if we're gonna have a form, we need, maybe if you can find one of the forms, and can we combine them into one? And if we can't combine them into one, like let's say there really need to be
I
two,
think you have to do it, make it simplistic.
They don't exist, so you're not gonna find the forms, don't spend.
okay.
Yeah, but I, well,
If there are gonna be two, it should just explain,
no, I think we say there's one, and we make it work.
okay.
We don't give them option B.
And then at one point, it mentions right above rating system, the CPC, which I believe is the capital planning committee, which we don't have. So that's the general, I feel like if we could clean those things up, everyone agrees on the general gist of it, we wanna be careful in our capital expenses and look at.
Alright, well, I'll go through that, and then what I'll do is, I'll figure out next time, finance meets this Thursday, I think.
Yeah.
But I'll go to one of their meetings.
Yeah.
And we'll cross the Ts and dot the Is.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all I have. Do look at the select board version, I think, from last
Okay.
year, cause I think that was pretty polished. It was probably not as thorough as we'd like, but it was,
I think it gave an overview without, like, it made
Make it
clear what
clear.
the priorities were without necessarily saying you have to do this for me.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
alright.
Frank will
And
take,
since nobody was doing for me.
Frank will take the lead on that for next week. The One Berkshire letter of support. I have no comments on it, so we'll sign it. And the Open Space Recreation Plan Committee,
Goody, more people.
we haven't formed a committee in a little while.
I know, I'm finding people.
So,
Yeah.
the Berkshire Regional Planning Group is recommending that it's made up of 6 to 10 people to complete the draft version of the OSRP. Suggested representation is one person from each of the following boards, committees, departments, or organizations: Parks, Concom, Select Board, Planning Board, Town Administrator, Director of Operations, Lake Garfield Working Group, Monterey Preservation Land Trust, and Renewable Energy Working
Planning board. So all people, so people would serve that are already serving on other boards that are.
Group. Just one from each of those groups.
Yeah.
For over the next year. He said, I believe the scope of services says there would be at least 6 meetings.
So is BRPC gathering input from these people and then they come up with the open space plan or work to come up with it?
Yes. It's called the scope of services.
Awesome.
Thank you.
If you.
I second it.
Throw me under the bus, throw me. In the road. No, it's fine. I'm actually interested in doing it. And like, it would be really amazing if doing this enabled us to apply for another pool of grant money that might enable us to use that property in a really, like, in an open space and housing way, like,
I agree.
it could really open some doors, so it's really worth doing.
So they would provide guidance to overall goals, assist in the identification of key issues, provide input to data and findings, and guidance and recommendations to the plan. The minimum of 6 meetings will be held each year, and they may be held virtually.
Who chairs it?
That's gonna be decided in the first meeting, who will be the chair.
So I guess,
I can reach out, if you agree
Yeah.
with all of those committees, I can reach out and see who's interested,
yeah,
if anybody.
the only, I mean, I feel like Parks is really important, and you almost want 2 members from Parks, because,
You only have 4 members, right?
no, 5.
5.
I feel like, because a lot of the open spaces in town owns, Parks directly manages. Like the beach or something, or this green park. Whereas
I guess I
the
think
Concom.
the town-owned ones is true, but I think that open space includes open space that's not town-owned.
That's why he suggested the Monterey Preservation.
Right.
Land.
Yeah. Cause I was gonna think like Concom, if something came up that had to go to the like if something wanted to be done in open space and it had to go to the Concom, it would.
So in talking to Virtual Regional Planning, he actually felt that Concom was the most important group to have.
Do you know what?
The problem is, the goal of the Conservation Commission is pretty narrow, which is like to protect wetlands and scenic mountains.
Everything's wet on it.
The whole freaking town's a wetland.
And it doesn't give a holistic perspective on developing our open spaces.
Well,
It's
I
about
think
the
the idea
community.
is to have a lot of different
Yeah.
uses. I mean, technically speaking, a lot of open space plans include like agricultural land. So that's like, people don't think about that, but it's true, right? A lot of I ride across agricultural land all the time, it's acres, right? And it's open. And you don't think of it as serving as open space, but it is, it's used by a ton of wildlife, right? Like, those are really important spaces for a lot of things. So I think the purview of open space is bigger, like, not the purview, but the reality of open space includes, like, in our town, it would include our town park and our town-owned parks and properties, but also a lot of private land and a bunch of preserved land that's preserved through various different means. Bidwell's land, like, not Bidwell Park, but house. I think it includes a lot of things, and I think the idea of the Concom is that the people on the Concom typically are aware of at least wetland issues and have some training in those issues. But that's not to say that wetlands are the only thing worthy of preservation, but I suspect that's where that's coming from.
So from the state's website, which actually has an open space and recreation plan workbook, it
Yeah,
says that
workbook.
typically on a committee will include the following. The first one is Conservation Commission member, Planning Board member, Recreation Commission member, Historical Commission or Society member, members of the Board of Health, Water Commission or Public Works Department, Community Preservation Committee member, landowners, real estate development or business interests, citizens interested in community character and landscape preservation, citizens interested in the environment and natural resource conservation, citizens interested in playgrounds and recreation, citizens interested in trail development, citizens interested in rare and endangered species, and others you determine to be important.
Could be more vague, basically.
So,
Technically everybody.
so
That's a big community.
what if, Melissa, if you reach out to each of the groups, please?
Okay.
And then just see who's willing to do it from the select board, it will be Susan. But I think also maybe we can emphasize, or not emphasize, but just say, if no one in your group wants to do it, don't tell someone who's not going to show up or not going to participate. And we could, let's say we only get someone from Parks and Concom and one other group, we could maybe fill in those seats. Say, let us know if you have 2 members who are interested in doing it. Because I don't think it's as important to get one from literally every single one as much as people who are.
Actually actively interested, I think is your point, right, I see your point. Yeah, like yeah, I have no idea if someone from like our working group would actually be interested. They might.
That's why I told Seth in the thing, I was like, a lot of these committees are overburdened right now.
Exactly.
It's Concom has 3 people on it,
And so I would totally get if they're not looking, but if they were, that would be awesome. It might also be the case that a former Concom member who doesn't wanna serve on the Concom but has a lot of knowledge, like Chris is kinda done, but this is a project he might be willing to do because it's a different thing.
Right,
It's using that experience, but it's a different hat and he still has the knowledge and perspective. So is it worth reaching out to him? Will you put him on your list?
Yeah, do you want me to do that, or you want me to just reach out first to the active committee members, and if we don't get anybody interested, then we can go from there?
I would ask Chris, man.
Ask Chris.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
my feeling.
the other
There's only
question,
3 people on the
the
Concom.
other point it raises is, do we just put it out and see who's interested in general? Let's see what we get back.
Right.
He's
Let's
been
do
back,
that
and
first.
Monterey News is not, it's printing late, he's going away.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's going, we got 5 weeks. We could see, get the response, if we think we need more, we could put something in the
Yeah.
newspaper.
And we probably need to be begging people to join the Concom and maybe a couple other things. I know it hasn't worked before, but you never know when someone will pick it up and read it and decide, hey, maybe I could do that, right? Like, you just don't know. The fact that you did it before and it didn't work doesn't mean it won't work next time. Yeah, that's why I don't know about advertising, but they pummel you with it over and over again for a reason, right?
Alright, sounds like a plan. Fire company lease renewal. Which, we do this up.
So,
Hang on, I got it. So I'm assuming no conversation.
I haven't had any conversation, because I told him that, I sent it to Donna,
Right,
Donna sent it back, or said I turned it over to Chris, and then Chris responded to me
right.
yesterday afternoon. I told Chris it was on the agenda for the night's meeting, and I talked to him later, or write him an email later.
This is Chris Tran, I'm assuming.
No, this is Chris.
Chris Brown, okay, sorry. So,
So,
we don't have an actual contract, but here, so I think we should bounce around at least a couple of thoughts here. 20 to 30 years is a heck of a long lease. And I believe that Melissa thinks that if it's past 20
If
years,
it's past 20 and get funding approval.
we'd have to go to
Yeah,
town meeting,
well,
which
I
that's
think-
certainly something we would prefer not have to do, I think.
well, yeah, but the question is, what he talked about in here is because the total rent cost of town for repairs and maintenance over the extended term would exceed 35,000. But one option I thought about is, we just raise the rent and let them decide what they do with the money?
That's one thing Sean has suggested.
I think we're making it too complex. My gut feeling is, by the time you get them to write this, you advertise it, this and this, 20 years from now, it's so hard to predict, what you'll need or what you're gonna do. And I'm like, well, just sit down and have an honest discussion, say, okay, we'll give you X amount per month, and so much, I don't know how to do it, but make it very simple. I'm just gonna
Not
put,
have a separate capital and.
no,
right,
yeah,
just
he doesn't have to come
raise it,
back,
Right,
I'm just gonna put it, don't hold me responsible,
right.
but we'll give you $6,000 a month, so that's 3,000, that's like giving him $40,000 a year. He maintains the building, we don't do it. I mean, I think it gets a little convoluted in what he's suggesting here.
Yeah, I think so too.
Oh, we could give it, 2 years that way and see how it goes,
The other thing I was gonna say is if getting around the aid thing requires a long-term interest in the building, from my perspective, the money we're giving them has to do with capital projects, what's a reasonable capital project timeline? I would say 5 years would be a minimum, but 30 years is long, like
Yeah, but
even a
if you-
10-year lease.
Yeah, but if you renovate the building, they look at building at a 30-year use, you've reestablished in the commercial, in the private sector, okay, that's a 30-year building.
Right,
You know, because we had used, to- or my experience was, we separate building depreciation versus equipment depreciation was all different. The
right,
building was 30 years.
okay,
So, but I think that my feeling is that we say, okay, we'll do this lease, and this will be what it does. Maybe you do it for 24 months, 2 or 3 years, you reevaluate.
I see, so by raising the
The
rent,
rent, we get away, we're
we're
not,
just saying.
here's
just
the money,
rent
how you spend it is up to
to
you. It's more predictable for us.
Yep.
It's more predictable, we can do that. You know, it's predictable for him because I tell you, they know what their expenses are, so he's gonna say, you know, X amount of money, I have this much money in the bank, and then, you know, I want to do this. And he has, I don't know what that number
Can we
looks
do it in a current fiscal year though?
I don't think,
Right,
We've
do it for
already-
next year.
Yeah,
we
you
do it
have
for
to
next
execute
year,
that
but-
for next year.
you know, next year could be you know, you could do a contract, the first year will give you X. Because you could reverse the warrant money that we put in there for them and then use it for other things, right? We'd have to have a town vote on it. Because we already have the money in the warrants, right?
Right.
But to get that money up to be back so we could use it for other things, we'd have to have the town do it. And then we say, the first year, we're gonna give you this amount, which equals, you know.
Well, I think he's planning on using the 90,000 that's banked right now.
Yeah, but what I'm telling you, what I think is the lawyer's saying it ain't legal. Because you don't have a contract, it's not in the contract.
But he's already got the 90.
Yeah, but it's in the books, but the select board, my understanding is we could stop it. I would have to ask the lawyer, are we in violation of the 88 amendment? That's, you know, I don't know. I mean, I can start listing out the questions I can put to them, you know.
In other words, you're raising the concern, or
We've been advised that we're in violation.
of it.
And then by acting on it and by giving it to them, are we getting ourselves in trouble? Are we?
Although, I suppose if we executed a longer term lease, we could then release those monies without being in violation.
Yeah, but then you get into the debate of how long is long, what do you wanna do, you know? Do you do a town meeting, you know, we talked about, you know, we typically do a town meeting for warrants, you know, sometime late fall, early winter, and then we try to address it then.
Yeah, can I come up with a couple of questions for you to send them?
Yeah, you could send them to me. I don't wanna start the clock running until we really think it out. You know, I thought, man, stay away from the phone. I get sucked into that whole
I know, right?
fucking $600.
Right.
So, but my feeling is, okay, we have a short-term issue. How do we do it? Okay, the long term is, I think, more practical.
To just
Instead
make the
of, because
lease
we're not gonna be
higher.
here in 20 years or 30
Right.
years or 15 or 8, you know, can we come up with a contract where we pay you more rent and you invest, you decide what's done with the money?
What's your gut hunch on how
Well, I'm just,
the China will feel about that?
I think you would like the 40, you know.
The
just
bigger
putting
amount,
it in a
yeah,
lump
yeah.
sum. I think we gotta figure out the short-term problem with the 90,000 that's already there, but.
Yeah, but
I
the
like-
60's there, the 30's not there until you sign the contract. Because it says in this year's warrant, you have to have a long-term contract. So there's only 60 there, so it's not there because you don't have a contract.
Although we could execute a contract that, I mean, yeah, we would still have to come up with a longer term, but what's the advantage? Especially if the amount is renegotiated each year, which can't be an impossible thing, that's not an infrequent situation.
Right.
Like, you don't have to, right, you don't have to set an amount of rent and keep that forever, even if it's a long-term thing. I'm just wondering if it's possible to execute a contract where the first year works under different rules and then thereafter.
You can do that. You know, because
So that we can meet the terms of trying to deal with the anti-aid rules with the money already set aside but not used, and still execute this concept going going forward, which I think is a good concept.
Right.
I'm just trying to figure out a way to negotiate both things at once, but maybe it doesn't
Well,
work that way.
do the open law meeting, I start you, Melissa, you're gonna have questions, I would have questions, can I forward them to you to look at before I go to the lawyer? You can?
To me, not unless we do it in a meeting, how long do you think, I mean, you think it's a,
No, I need to sit down and really try to put my head, here's kind of the issues that we're facing.
So the 30,000 approved this year just says contingent upon the execution of a new lease agreement between the town and the company upon terms and conditions acceptable to the board. It doesn't say a long term.
Okay, so that's.
So you could just continue the, you have the one running month to month right now. That would be one of my questions to them, is that you're gonna work on a longer term lease for fiscal year 25 and forward. But right now, could you just either continue going month to month and release this whole 90,000?
or do a lease that's good for now through when that term would begin at the beginning of fiscal year 2025. Either one.
Till June 30th, right?
What we could do is if you guys have a list of questions, what is it, 48 hours or 72 posting? So like if today's Tuesday, if you posted tomorrow that we were gonna meet to have a conversation on Friday, the two of us can meet with Melissa, and it's a posted meeting.
Mhm.
Stupid, but we can do it.
I know.
I mean, it doesn't even have to be a long conversation, it can just be, what do you think of these questions, yeah, what about this, what about that, and then we're done, like, we can make it a 15-minute meeting, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, I agree with you, I think that's something we probably
We
should.
could, I mean, we could just post a meeting, and if we don't use it, we don't,
Right.
cancel it.
Cancel it.
What do
The
you think?
other question you have to think about, all right, we get to the short term, how much should the rent be? That,
they've
well,
been
that, I
asking
mean,
for,
that.
right, it's been a consistent 30K a year, right?
No,
No,
17,
17, 30 is the capital.
30 for the last.
Oh, no, I meant the capital part, and it's 17 for the rent, so that would be 47.
Yeah, but do you think really that they need for the next 10 years, 300?
It's a good question.
See, that, I, you know,
I'm looking at the list of.
it's $465,000.
So there's your answer. That
Yeah,
would be
but I
yes.
mean, but I would probably say that list, some of those costs are overstated. I mean, do we wanna put 90,000 into the pavilion?
Well, that's a big question of what he's thinking of doing with it, right?
Well, and so one of the things, when you mentioned procurement, so I mean, I would wanna make sure that she's okay with us just releasing the funds to them as well, and that she's not requiring that they have to go through
Procurement.
procurement. Cause they're a 501c3, so they wouldn't pay, prevailing, thank you, I'm having trouble with my words tonight. Prevailing wage and stuff, but if she also says that they're gonna have to go through the
Prevailing
procurement
wage would be
process.
more, right?
Yeah, those projects are now gonna be triple what it's written on there.
On some of those costs that he's written in there, I would want more details or an estimate on how he got to those numbers.
I mean, I think he just
Yeah, these
gave
are
a
just
number,
off
yeah.
I know, but, I mean, but
gave
we're
numbers
talking
based
about
on
rent
that.
now, we're talking about a commitment. You know,
Right.
we need to fine tune things.
And with the $17 paying for what, utilities and heat?
Well, he's got other small, like he's got people cutting the lawn, he's got snow plowing, I guess,
Right.
stuff like that.
So 465,000 divided by 20 years comes out to be 23,250. Just so you know.
Right.
I think you have to do it, you wouldn't have to, you do like a 3-year contract and then evaluate, you don't have to get into.
We don't have to make the commitment for the entire
Yeah,
length if we're
right.
just doing this
Right.
rent. They're using the money as they need to.
I think what he suggested here makes it very complex, and leaves.
I agree with you, I
What
think
the
it's
people that
ridiculously
follow us,
complex.
you know.
It seems like standard lawyer make
But-
things as difficult as possible.
Well, some of it, I think the state did it. When you
Yeah,
have-
fair.
When you have a thing that says any aid, usually you wanna give aid, but here, they're.
40.
But someone told me at one time they got more for rent on that property. Yeah, one time.
Been getting that amount since, as long as I can remember.
Okay. I remember.
Okay,
No, that's, I mean, let's plan on something on Friday.
So why don't you tell me now, because I'll post it right now.
what do you think? I mean, should we do 9 and get it done?
Yeah, I wanna get it done.
Or do we wanna do
Yeah.
later in the day to allow for whatever?
No, we got 2 days, so I prefer to have my day. Well, let me check.
I do too.
Let me
if-
check the weather and then I'll.
I was
take
just
off.
gonna, and I might wanna ride that morning.
I leave
I
at
know I
noon,
wanna ride.
I have an appointment at 12:30, so I can't, you guys can send me questions.
Friday.
8?
7.
Do we wanna do
Potential
8?
heavy rainfall, chance of rain 60%. There goes that golf day. Let me check the calendar. And my Fridays are open, so what I prefer doing it earlier.
Yeah, that's, I don't think I can do before 8, but 8 works for me, cause then we can all make our various things, does that work?
Yeah, that works for me.
I mean, I could be here earlier than 8,
No,
but
that's fine.
you're not gonna want me to say
Susan's not a
anything.
morning person.
No, I'm not a morning
Okay, so 8 AM.
person. Okay.
Post it now, it's just gonna be to discuss questions to send to the lawyer about the police, right?
Mhm. My husband's gonna have a very entertaining morning that day.
I'm Justin, come back in now.
Yeah, I know. Have you been lurking?
Any unanticipated business.
I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of all of the hard work and time and effort that went in by Don Trico, Sean Tryon, and Jim Willis in getting Camp Kamama up to speed. Oh, sorry, and I should include the electrical inspector, Nick Fretzel.
How,
on
what's
the
their
inspections they had
status?
to do. They are open, I think there was a few cabins that they did not get permission for, but, everything is permitted now.
Amazing. How many fines did it require or did it not?
They would have to ask, Don, he was, as of today when he popped in, they were still going over all the re-inspection fees and stuff that they were being charged for each one.
Good.
It had to be a pretty,
I hope it was, because what we want is for them to do it right from the outset, which they promised they would this year, and they didn't, so, thank you for.
So it's Don, who else did you have on?
Don Tirico, Sean Tryon, Jim Willis, who's our health agent, and Nick Fretzel.
Wiring guy.
I'm
Yeah, good job, guys.
sure your
I know.
camp should be very appreciative, but I know I stopped in and talked to Don last week.
And then the other thing is I wanna make you aware, and I guess get your thoughts, so the year-end letters that went out to everybody to let them know when transfers had to be made by, and when the cutoffs were sent out, the end of May was July 5th, that's why you guys all had your meetings that day. The transfers, there has been one department right now that has about $900 that they need transferred. I've gotten 2 emails from the person, and I believe they started to include the finance committee, because the finance committee is meeting on Thursday, and
Well, what's the law?
so the law is, you have until July 15th to do it, but the policy that was set for this year, the accountant treasurer and myself always go over what the dates are going to be based on the warrant schedule, meeting schedules, and so on. And so when we looked at, when you guys would be meeting, when the finance committee would be meeting, and the vendor warrant schedule. It was decided July 5th because the last fiscal year 23 warrant was July 10th. So,
Right,
right,
so that would have been
so
included
both
in the
have
last
already
one,
passed,
so-
right, so if they went to July 15th, they would have had to, they'd have to add another warrant
Mhm.
to the schedule. I'm telling you guys, that I'm meeting, I have my monthly meeting with, my weekly meeting with the accountant and treasurer tomorrow, and I'm gonna ask them what their thoughts are. I'm assuming they are gonna say, you know, we set the schedule and we should stick by it. I'm telling you because I guess you could tell them, you know, they work for you, and you could tell them. However, I just wanna put the caveat in there that if you are going to do that, everybody else that also has an issue, because I do know that the Parks Commission would have liked to have met the deadline and they didn't, but they are not pushing it. And there could be other departments could say, you know, we knew the deadline was July 5th, we missed it and we're not pushing it, and then no one would have any time to put one in. You see what I mean? Like if this one department is allowed to do the transfer on Thursday,
Well,
what happens to all the other ones that weren't?
What, can you tell me about what the flip side of that is? In other words, so the people that missed doing it, what happens? The leftover money just has to get recertified and come back through and they don't have access to it anymore, so they have to use the current fiscal year's budget?
Right, so like I'll use the Parks Commission as an example. So the Parks Commission had money in their lifeguard account that they should have transferred to their operations so that they could have paid this bill that they wanted to pay. They didn't do that, so right now we're talking about they're just not going to buy this service.
Okay.
So, and then if we don't, then we end up with like the prior year bill, which we always have on town meeting.
Right.
Prior year bill from at least someone. That being said, so what's the process? Usually it goes to what, the select board, the finance committee, we're talking about doing an internal transfer.
No, so this one would be a reserve fund transfer because that's also this department has also overspent. So they are looking for a reserve fund transfer.
I think if it's easy enough to do, just do it. I mean, I'm not gonna be a stickler for the date. If it can be done by the 15th, they have to issue another warrant, but I mean, that's,
But what about all the other departments that,
well, if they can
Wouldn't
get
be
it
a
in by tomorrow or something, right?
Today's the 11th.
right, I guess my
Yes.
point is that I don't know if there are, you know what I mean, like, so do you
Well-
want me to send out a message also saying like, you know,
If you have
hey,
any last
if you
minute,
did miss the deadline,
But
it
then it would all-
would only be a reserve fund transfer, they couldn't do
Right.
internal, so like, it
what's
just wouldn't
left in
apply.
reserve fund?
This wouldn't apply to the Parks Commission, because now they wouldn't really be using the monies that they had left over, they're gonna be using reserve fund. So, you know, I don't know if the finance committee would even approve them, because it doesn't. The other option is that you guys would meet on Friday, and you would also do
Well, two of us
some
will
internal,
do
right, two of you could make internal transfers. That would be the other option. If the, you know, accountant, and like I said, I'm assuming if you guys say, yes, you have to do another warrant, then I guess they have to do another warrant.
What does that end up costing us?
Didn't we just do a payroll correction warrant?
Yeah, I mean, it's just.
I mean, they are,
It's more of their time, you
it's
know.
their job, I mean.
It's annoying that people don't get it done when they're supposed to get done.
Happens every year, Susan.
I know.
It happens every
I
year,
believe
and
it.
usually it ends up at a prior year bill on the next town meeting warrant, which is fine, it's really, at least this year we're talking, last year we were talking a lot more money, and actually the vendor didn't get paid.
Wait, the $6
For-
grand or something,
For
right?
the
Yeah.
cemetery.
So no, actually, that's a good point, because Linda has not submitted bills for him.
So it'll happen again.
So hers, if
But
she
we
does,
have the opportunity now to,
to reach
to
out to
correct
her and
that.
say, yes.
Is she reachable?
And
Wow.
well, are we gonna get that kind of turnaround? I mean, so,
if we have the opportunity to, like, correct some of these, and it takes a little more work from the accountant and treasurer, let's do it. I mean, we pay them good money.
so today's the 11th, the 15th is Friday, right?
Yeah, so you two, if you can't come at 8 on Friday, then you two would have to sign some transfers on Friday, and the finance committee.
Yeah.
We'll have to sign them on
But
Thursday.
the deal is, anybody who wants to get in on that boat,
Right, I'm gonna.
had better have it there, because there's no
Yeah,
crying in
you
the
gotta-
milk
They better-
after
they
that,
better
they're
have-
done.
They better have it to me tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's not Friday
No,
morning,
exactly.
have it to Melissa.
Right,
without
by
Friday,
tomorrow
she
morning,
says.
because otherwise we don't wanna hear about your wedding.
Well, it's, we gotta get people paid, so.
Yeah, we do, but it isn't reasonable but we also have to hold the people that are running departments accountable for getting their work done in a timely fashion so that their vendors can be paid. Right, like, yes, the vendors need to be paid, but also we have to ask people that are running their departments to make sure the vendors are paid.
Yeah, I agree.
And keeping track of their budgets.
I mean, alright, so tell the accountant treasurer that we're going to make an effort to make some internal transfers and or reserve fund requests, to avoid, having to go to town meeting. I will reach out to Linda. I think,
Okay.
I don't know if you need to, Melissa, I don't know if you need to send an email to everyone, but if you can identify people and just tell them that you need it by tomorrow.
Thursday morning. Okay.
Tell them by tomorrow, close the business, so that they actually get it too. Okay.
Alright,
I wanted to ask you were gonna look into the food truck thing that came up above?
I just connected her with Jim
Okay,
Willets, yeah,
okay,
and Jim got right back. Like, I think I sent the email after the meeting at night and Jim got right back
okay, cool,
at like 9 PM.
awesome,
It was
that's great. I just it was in the minutes, so that made me think of it.
2 minutes.
Here's the other side.
Okay.
And the extra page that's there, it's like, it wouldn't let me incorporate
Yeah.
Frank's changes, I don't know why, so that's the second to last page.
We're doing the 27th first, I'm assuming, yes?
Yes, 27th first. I think we should probably just delete when Peter Marquette is available to discuss, right?
Sure.
The board had questions for Peter and we'll revisit when he's present.
And we're
And then I thought I had just deleted, this is Frank's edits here.
No.
Number
On
6.
On 6, so that takes care of Susan's edit.
Should MFC be Monterey Fire Company? Because we're not supposed to do,
In agendas,
it's just an agendas, okay.
I mean, do what you feel is, make the change there.
That's fine.
This is just, do what you feel is right, but legally, it's the agenda.
I'm fine with all of this changes.
Alright, motion to approve June 27th as amended.
Second.
All vote yes.
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 So that's unanimous approval. And we'll get that. Yes, sir. And then I think you have the other minutes, Susan.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize.
So that's from Melissa, and those two go together.
Great. Who's blue then?
I think it's me.
Okay.
Oh, you know what, you're right, cause like, on my screen, it shows up as a different color, so it's blue,
Yeah.
and on my screen, it was red.
Yeah, I thought this section could be condensed a little bit.
Go for it, I'm always good with shorter.
Um, I think, at the bottom of this first page, I had a sentence, but I think you said it better. If the, about
Well,
basically.
farm, the town will vote to
yeah,
proceed to
It was a
combined
little
capacity.
confusing, but I
Sure.
think we'll just go here.
Okay. Just mark it, so she knows.
Yeah.
Yeah, the next paragraph, like, Susan shared feedback from the fire company, did she mean Melissa? Cause it wasn't me.
What kind of feedback did I share?
Received from the fire company along with
Yes,
concerns
yeah,
regarding a
it was
recent
Melissa.
fire
You
that, as
talked
a
about
result, it
you
must have been you, and it was
Indicated
just a
you
woman's
talked
voice,
to
so she
Sean and
attributed
they
it to
weren't
me.
really.
Yeah, so I think it's Melissa, if we're leaving that in, it should not be me that said it, it was not me that said it, so. Wow. We're on fire, guys, we're about to be caught up.
So, motion to approve July 5th minutes,
Second.
I'll vote yes.
Yes.
That's unanimous approval there. So, yeah, if we're meeting, if you all are meeting Friday, if there's transfers, well, it might be partially weather.
Might be what?
Partially weather dependent,
Oh,
but
yeah, yeah,
if it's transfers.
I don't know, like, but they're saying thunderstorms, which means it's probably in the afternoon, so. Usually that,
Think positive, right?
right, well. I'm not gonna hold my breath.
For a motion to adjourn.
I was gonna
Second.
say, did you already adjourn?
No, the hold my
I'll
breath
vote
was
yes.
about the weather on Friday.
Yes, to
Yes.
adjourn.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned at 7:37 PM.
Now